Hey there! In a previous video, we generated a video from a podcast episode with Remotion. The video displayed when each speaker was talking by highlighting their profile picture with a green ring. The green ring appeared and disappeared instantly, and I think we can do better by adding animations to the entering and exiting state. We will use Remotion's animation capabilities. Let's see how. The initial version of this project was frame-centered. The idea of Remotion is that you define with React what we should see in the video at every frame. So, for every frame of the video, from the beginning to the end, I created an array, and each item of this array was another array. So, for the frame 0, we had an array with the letters A and B, telling that A and B speakers were talking at the frame 0. For every frame we add an item, and we could get the current frame with use current frame hook from Remotion, and determine from this big frames array who was talking. The issue with this frame-centered approach is that it's hard to animate things. In the composition, I get the current frame with use current frame hook. I get the frames array, and this is the profile picture of the speaker, and based on the frames array at the frame, I checked whether the speaker was talking, and based on that, I displayed the green ring here. The issue, as I said, is that it's hard to animate, because I'm just applying some CSS classes, and I can't really make an enter or an exit animations. For that, we need to use another technique. The AI I use to identify speakers outputs an array of segments. We have the start time and the stop time, and who is talking. We will use this approach I will call sequence-based to be able to add animations to this green ring. This is what we will do. So, instead of generating a big frames array with one item per frame, we will see things in sequences. So, for instance, the speaker A will talk from this timecode to this timecode, and for every speaker and every segment identified by the AI, we will create a sequence. We will rely on the sequence component from Remotions, which takes a start timecode and the duration. The big benefit of this sequence component is that when the start frame is reached in the video, then the children we passed to the component are rendered and mounted for the first time. So we are able to create this enter animation. For the exiting phase, what we will do is simply know the duration of the sequence and apply the exiting animation when we know that the sequence ends. I go to the composition, and instead of this big frames array, we will have a speakers property, which will be a record. The keys will be the name of the speakers, and the value will be an array of objects with the start frame property, which will be a number, and the stop frame, a number 2. I go to the road component, there I change the default props, and I need to update the calculate metadata function. This function is used to compute the dynamic data we need to render the video. For instance, the duration of the podcast episode may change, so this is a dynamic parameter, and we also have these segments generated by the AI, and they are dynamic too. So this function takes all the data we need, makes some computations, and returns the data. Previously it was the frames, and now it will be the speaker's object. So there we get the segmentation from the AI. We get the podcast's episode. We get the duration in frames of the podcast episode. But we won't do all of this. We won't create a frames like this. We will create the speakers object, which will be a record with the key as string and the value being an array like that, with a start frame number, stop frame number, defaulting to an empty object. And now, instead of filling this frames array, we will still loop on the segments generated by the AI. And we will get if speakers segment was undefined, if, because this is an empty object, if the speaker we get hasn't been identified yet, then we need to make this an empty array. And after, we get this array and we push start frame and stop frame. Now, instead of the frames, we return the speaker. We go back to the composition. We take the speakers prop. We rename the speakers variable, which holds some metadata about the speakers, to speakers metadata. Here we are looping over the speakers to create their card with their profile picture, their name. So now we will loop over the speakers metadata, and there we will just remove all of this code. The ring will be applied separately, so we don't need all of this. Here we will create a new component called green ring. This component will return this div with ring for green ring. Okay. And we will use a sequence component from Remotion to render all the sequences the speakers is talking into. And for all of these sequences, we will render the green ring component. So we do speaker. We get the speaker by the name, speaker label. We can map. We get a sequence, and we use a sequence component from Remotion. So it expects a from property, which is the start frame. It expects a duration in frames, which is stop frame minus start frame. And we render the green ring component there. I can set an ID, like index. I need to set the key to the component. Okay, we can try. You can see a lot of sequence components have been generated. And now let's see what happens.
Yeah. So we're saving.
I failed something. You can see the green ring is applied to the whole video. That's not what we want. I think I need to set a relative class name there. That's not that yet. Flex. Yes, we'll try to wrap all of this inside a component. Relative, move that down. Okay, that's better, but not that yet. So I need to go to the green ring. I need to set the width, the height, and now we should be good with the size. We can round the elements with rounded full. And now that's better, we have the ring. This is now the moment to talk about entering and exiting animations. With Remotion, we can use the spring function to create a spring animation based on the current frame. So spring animations mimic what we can find in the nature. This is a physics-based animation, and this is a kind of values we get from this spring function. So the minimum value is 0 and the max is 1. But to mimic this bouncing thing we can find in the nature, the value will go beyond 1, then it will go down a bit to stabilize with the 1 value, and after the animation ends, we will give a duration to the animation. Then the 1 value is always returned. The objective will be to set the opacity of the green ring. So when the green ring enters, the opacity will go from 0 to 1, and when it will exit, it will go again from 1 to 0. But the spring function from Remotion can only go from 0 to 1. So the result we will want to reach is this curve. So 0 to 1, then 1 to 0. The mathematical operation we have to do to reach this result is entering minus exiting. So what we will do is have two spring functions, one for the entering and one for the exiting. The exiting phase will have a delay. It will go from 0 to 1 like the entering phase, but with this calculation, we will be able to reach the opacity we want. To have a nice animation, the entering phase will start with the segment, and the exiting phase will start with the end of the segment. We will have this result. The segment A from the A speaker is here, and the exiting animation will happen when the segment is already finished. I don't want this. I don't want the exiting animation to happen before the segment ends. I want it to happen after it ends. It will fade away way nicer than if we try to predict when the segment ends. So the speaker stops talking and then the ring fades away. The first thing we will do is to create a new constant called animation duration, and its value will be 15. We use a 30 frames per second value for the video, and 15 means half a second. We will increase the duration in frames of the sequence by this, and this is to be able to create the exiting animation with this pattern in mind. Now in the green ring component, we can create the enter value from the spring function. It needs a frames per second. For that, we use the use video config hook from Remotion. It returns the frames per second. And we also need the current frame. For that, we use the use current frame hook from Remotion. We also need to set the duration in frames. It is animation duration. That's good for the interface. We can make a try. We set the opacity to enter. And if we go to the video,
so we're saving up all these releases.
You can see that the ring appears with a fading effect. The animation works. We need more information to be able to create the exit animation. The delay before we can start the exit animation is the segment duration. To get this duration, we need to do stop frame minus start frame. The green ring component needs to take the start frame and the stop frame, and when we render these components, we need to provide the properties. So start frame equals sequence start frame, stop frame equals sequence stop frame. Now we can create the exit value from the spring function. We give the FPS, the frame, and the duration. This is the same values for the exit than the enter. The difference there is a delay. The delay will be stop frame, start frame. It will be this value. And now we need to combine the enter and the exit values, because for now the enter will reach the 1 value after some time and the exit value will be of 0 for most of the time of the sequence, and at the end of the sequence it will reach the 1 value. To get the value combining both of the values, we can do const animation equals enter minus exit. Now the opacity is not enter but animation. Now we can try to see what happens.
Yeah, so we're saving up all these releases for the end of the year. So they'll be like Catalyst 8 or whatever the hell it is. And then
you think you should do that?
You can see that the animation is just perfect. Just because the effect is amazing, let's listen to the podcast for a few seconds.
That before Christmas? I feel like you should really wait till after.
You think so?
I don't know, because if something goes wrong or whatever, there's problems. Like, I don't know. It's just like if you were going to
go wrong. What's going to go wrong with
Remotion is a powerful tool, and thanks to its animation capabilities, we can create interesting videos. Other animation tools can be integrated inside Remotion, like Lottie, React Native Skia, After Effects, OpenGL, or even 3D models. I want to see what you build with this. I hope you liked this video. See you in the next one. Bye.